If you're careful in your performance of mitzvahs, it's because you are God-fearing. What do we mean by fearing? What do we mean, fear of God? Obviously, it means something more than fear of punishment. So if you're keeping mitzvahs because you're afraid of a lightning bolt knocking you out, then your fear is not of God, your fear is not of heaven, your fear is of pain. You're afraid of pain. You're afraid of punishment. You're afraid of consequence. That's not fear of God. Fear of God doesn't mean the fear of what he could do to you. It means fear of him. How do we understand that? There's a mitzvah to love your fellow Jew, just like there's a mitzvah to love God. There's also a mitzvah to fear God. Is there also a mitzvah to fear your fellow Jew? Is there a corresponding fear? We love a fellow Jew like we love God. Do we fear a fellow Jew like we fear God? The answer should be yes. Because wherever there is love, there is fear. They are two sides of a coin. There is no love that doesn't bring fear. And where there is no love, there is no fear, real fear. So in this sense, fear means the fear of loss. The more precious you become to me, the more significant you become in my life, the more important you are, the more I have to fear the loss of this connection. So when you're really, really important to me, I have to have a fear of losing you. I have to have a caution not to do anything to ruin our relationship. Not that we will ever destroy the relationship. A Jew will always be a Jew and God will always be our God. But the connection, the communication, the closeness can be ruined. So we're careful. A man who is not afraid of his wife doesn't love his wife. If you're not afraid of hurting her, if you're not afraid of alienating her, if you're not afraid of losing her affection, then you don't love her. And of course, it's true the other way around. If a wife doesn't fear her husband, she also doesn't love him. Now, it is possible to fear someone and not love them, but you can't love them and not fear them. But then the fears are completely different. Then it's the fear of consequence, the fear of pain. But the fear of loss of connection, not the fear of loneliness or abandonment. No, the fear of losing you, of not having you. That fear is an inseparable part of the love. So in this sense, fear means not I'm feeling insignificant or I'm feeling tiny. Here it means I'm so invested in the relationship with you that losing it scares me. It's painful. And of course, it too diminishes me, makes me feel tiny. There's also another approach to the whole subject. So some people say the word fear is actually not even the best translation. It should be translated as awe. The awe of God. And what is awe? When's the last time you were standing next to something awesome? I mean, really awesome. Grand Canyon? the redwood forest, because it's so big, it makes you feel small. It's awesome. You're in the presence of somebody who is truly a genius, a scholar of the first rank. It's awesome. You feel tiny, much smaller than the Grand Canyon makes you feel, or the redwood forests. You feel so insignificant compared to a person who is fully significant. That's awe. And we should feel that when we think about God. But it doesn't replace the fear. Sometimes we use the word yira, like yira shamayim. Sometimes we use the word pachad, which means terror. You're terrified. So let's try to understand. What do we mean when we use the word fear? As a general description, the difference between love and fear is that love makes you feel full, bigger, expansive. Fear makes you feel smaller, constricted, insignificant, tiny. Even in the most simple, you're being threatened by a dangerous animal. It makes you feel vulnerable, tiny, helpless, small. So fear is the sense that I am insignificant. Love is the sense that I make a difference, that I matter. So what does fear of God mean? Considering that you are in the presence of God, you don't feel special, like a VIP invited to an important party. You feel tiny, you feel out of place, you feel overwhelmed and inadequate, which is a genuine fear. What am I doing here? I don't belong here. This is way too holy for me. Not that I don't want to be here, but I'm humbled by it and I feel tiny because in a place of holiness, my personal holiness is woefully inadequate. The same is true when you consider God's love. We won't go into it here today, but it's mind-boggling. The lengths that God goes to create us, to have us, to teach us, to remind us, to inspire us, and to bring us closer to Him. The love is awesome. In the presence of that love, we feel tiny and inadequate because we are not capable of that kind of love. We can't reciprocate. And that makes you feel afraid, out of place, beyond your depth. So the fear of God simply means in His presence, I can't see myself. Even in His love, I can't find a response. So I feel tiny, I feel humbled, I feel inadequate. There's also a phenomenon called yiras chet, the fear of sin. I think we can apply both ideas to the fear of sin as well. Again, fear of sin doesn't mean fear of the consequence of the sin. I am afraid to sin. I am afraid to do something you don't like. Not only because I'm afraid of you, of losing you, but also I'm afraid of the sin. The sin has now become my enemy. Because if God doesn't like it, then it's my enemy. Similar to if you have a really close friend, any enemy of your friends is also your enemy. So you become frightened by the sin because it is so unpleasant to the one you love. So in addition to the fear of God, there's also the fear of sin. Somebody once was doing something that the Torah says that the consequences are very bad. And the Rebbe back then, Tzemach Tzedek, I believe, said to him, "What are you doing? Don't you know the consequence?" And the guy said, "Yeah, I'm not afraid of consequences." And the Tzemach Tzedek said to him, "Don't be a fool. You're afraid of a dog. You're not a brave person. The reason you're not afraid of these consequences is because you don't understand them. You think the consequences means that a black cat with wings is going to come and haunt your dreams? It means you're not going to be able to daven properly. You're not going to be able to tune into anything godly. You will lose your sensitivity to the subtle aspects of your neshama, the subtle aspects of Judaism, of the mitzvahs, of the Torah. That's the consequence. So on a higher level, even fear of punishment has its place, because it's not fear of physical punishment. It's fear of the consequences of a jaded heart and of a blocked mind that can't absorb godliness. That's something to be afraid of. And that's what we mean. Fear of God, fear of sin, or even terror. Because the more you love something, the more you need something, the more terrifying is the thought of losing it. Not that we should be paranoid. It's a healthy kind of fear, not a debilitating or paralyzing fear. Because when you think about how terrible it would be to lose the thing you love, the one you love, it naturally reminds you of the love. So they feed on each other. More fear, more love. More love, more fear. And it just keeps getting deeper and deeper until you become absolutely united as one, so that you're not loving and you're not fearing, you're simply joined, becoming one. That should happen in a marriage. It should happen in the world, in our relationship to God. Vayemahu yihya, on that day, God will be one and his name will be one. It doesn't say we will love him tons or we will fear him terribly. We will move from the love, fear dance of life to a complete union, to a complete oneness with him. Shalom Aleichem. How are you? You know, I do a lot of talking, a lot of Zooming, many classes, many subjects, but that's all formal stuff. Hopefully good stuff, but formal. We also have a Wednesday night meeting that's more informal and kind of Hamish. If you want to join us for that kind of an event, interactive, time for questions and so on. If you want to join us for this side of conversation, click on the link below and join us every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. Well, maybe not every Wednesday night, but we try to make it every Wednesday night at 9 o'clock, a more informal chat, which can be more enjoyable at times than the formal stuff. So check it out. Click on the link and join us. Try it. You'll like it.